We've got a special guest from the campaign trail. This is Mr. Kevin Rinke. He is running for the office of the governor this year. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a conservative businessman that believes in public service, believes in giving back to the people of Michigan, and feel that I can contribute to a better state and to better governance for the citizens.
Would you mind telling us a little bit of your background?
Yeah. I've got ultimately two career paths. I had private auto dealerships that are some of the oldest in the country for General Motors. My family goes way back to the days of horse-drawn carriages with Bill Durant. And I also participated in public dealership groups with Roger Penske and Bruton Smith. And the next career path was I've been involved in healthcare, post-acute traumatic brain injury business, and an autism business.
So the first big question, and I think this is the primary question on people's minds. As you mentioned, you're a businessman, but not a lot, if any, local government or state government experience. Do you think that this gives your opponents an edge over you in the election?
No, I don't. I think that it actually gives me an edge over them. Business people, and it's proven in state after state, time after time, when they problem solve and approach issues, they look at things differently than people that are career politicians. And there's a lot of distrust in politics today, and it's because of how career politicians act and how they don't problem solve for the people that they're supposed to represent. So I think that it's a tremendous advantage that I'm not a career politician, and the job of governor happens to be to run the state, to be the CEO of the state. And so if you combine business experience and appropriate problem solving, and your intent is to help everybody in the state, that's different than a career politician who's brought up on partisan politics or who's brought up focusing on the things that divide versus the things that pull people together. And a businessman understands that you unite people, that you represent all those people, and most importantly, that you serve those people. Politicians don't understand that.
Does this mean that if you attain the office of governor, we can expect you to do some reaching across the aisle or make concessions to the opposing party?
I think that as governor, I'm going to be representing 100% of the people of Michigan and do it with grace and dignity and respect to all of those people, irrespective of if they're a Republican or a Democrat.
Thank you for that well-rounded answer. And now on to the next one that I have for you. Many people across the state and in the northeast region of Michigan especially are impacted by PFAS contamination. As governor, what would you do to address the problem?
Well, I'm certainly not an expert on PFAS, but water has been contentious. And we can look at Flint, we can look at Benton Harbor, we can look at federally mandated numbers as well as locally mandated or state numbers. And it needs to be addressed. As a business guy, the first thing I'm going to do is get the best people in the country and maybe even in the world to start advising on the various approaches. And you have several levels that you have to break down. Financially, impact on the most number of people, ability to implement it, monitor it, and show progress. So it's not a simple question. It's a complex question that requires subject matter experts. And then what a governor does, because he's a leader, his responsibility is to create an environment for those subject matter experts to be successful in applying something to the citizens. And leaders make the decisions after they have been educated on the issue. And that, again, I think is a strength of mine that the other folks that are currently in office or that are running for office haven't been exposed to the degree that I have.
And speaking of education, you say that's one of your top priorities. So, what would you do to bolster the public education system and improve curriculum?
Well, I think for starters, what we have to do is recognize that education is the only subsidy where the subsidy is mandated where the person applies that. For instance, food stamps, people can go anywhere that accepts food stamps. Healthcare services, people can go anywhere that accepts or provides healthcare. But when it's education, children are trapped, parents are trapped, families are trapped if their school doesn't perform for them. So I happen to be a big believer that the focus should be on the child, and the state allocates X number of dollars to that child and that family should have the ability to take that money with them to a school that performs up to their basic needs. Now, when we talk about curriculum, the governor doesn't set the curriculum, but certainly the governor may influence those that set the curriculum. And I want our kids prepared appropriately to serve the state, to serve their community, and to serve their country, ultimately. And Michigan is failing miserably in their public education right now. Absolutely failing the children miserably. We graduate kids that can't spell their name because there's an incentive to graduate people. And there's not the accountability that I would look for as being successful. We're losing business because of a lack of talent in the state. And education is supposed to be where that talent's developed. There's vocational opportunities that Michigan traditionally excelled at that have been eliminated. And not every kid is set up to go to 4 years of college. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's great jobs in the service industry and skilled labor that used to be taught and available. And look at what Michigan was when those things were taught. We were called the arsenal of democracy. We had skilled labor that produced and performed not only for the state, but for the country. We had the auto industry and the technology that came out of Michigan kids that were educated to their skill set so they could flourish. It's been eliminated. And we wonder why we struggle in manufacturing. We wonder why we have to look to other states or other areas to supplement jobs that could be done by Michigan residents and Michigan kids if they were offered that educational opportunity.
All right. And spinning off on education, you mentioned that you want to take a stand against critical race theory in public schools. Now, what would that look like, and how would it affect what children learn?
Well, critical race theory is divisive. And it's just that simple. You're good, you're bad. You are inherently good, you are inherently bad. I don't know what role that plays as far as educating kids. Public education is to prepare kids for society, to contribute. We aren't teaching reading successfully. We aren't teaching writing successfully. We aren't teaching math successfully. But we want to teach kids that the color of their skin should make them ashamed of their state, their country, the history. America is the greatest country in the world. We offer more opportunity than any other country in the world, and yet we want to teach people to hate in our public school systems? We want to teach people that they should be ashamed for participating in the American dream or for the progress that we've made? Under a Rinke administration, we're not going to teach those type of things. And as governor, I will exercise every effort to eliminate those, without a doubt. We're going to educate kids on what they need to know to be successful. We're not going to indoctrinate kids into some social, culture that somebody outside of the family determines is appropriate.
On your section on economy, you say you want to cut regulations to help businesses. What kind of regulations would you cut?
Wow, that's a great question. I have not sat down and looked at the various regulations to say specifically which regulation I would cut. But as we look at different industries and we look at different structures, be it taxes, be it bureaucratic filings, be it government getting in the way versus getting out of the way, and I go back to creating an environment for people to be successful in is the number one element of a leader. And so it makes sense that you have to assess the current environment and eliminate obstacles that are preventing that from happening. And each situation is going to be unique, but we've seen what less bureaucracy, less regulation, doesn't mean we're irresponsible. We're going to protect the environment. We're going to protect workers, okay? We're going to keep people safe. But government has grown leaps and bounds, and I happen to believe outside of what the role of government should be. And as governor, I want to get that role more defined. And we're going to do it on a step-by-step, issue-by-issue, industry-by-industry basis.
And is there anything I haven't asked about that you think is important to know?
Well, I think something that people should recognize is this. Post-COVID, the top 20 states that have enjoyed economic recovery, 18 of those states are Republican, 2 are Democrat. But taking it a step further, 17 of the 18 states are governed by governors who were business people before they got into elected office. And those are the states that are thriving. Michigan currently ranks 41st. We have a career politician who is interested in political partisanship, who was auditioning for 3 years to be vice president versus doing her job as the governor of the state of Michigan, and we're suffering because of it. And there's a litany of examples that we can cite, and the people of Michigan deserve better. They need a leader that understands that you represent everybody and that you act for the citizens of the state. And that's what they get in a Rinke administration.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Rinke. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to seeing you again soon.